that was really a big crop because there was so much manual labor in it. But we had like 35 up to 40 acres of sugar beets, and a lot of it was manually done. All the weeding, the first part was done by hand with a hoe, a short-handled hoe for the thinning. You had to thin between the beets with a short-handled hoe about maybe 5 inches apart. Thin it, cut out all the beets and everything. Just leave a beet every 4 or 5 inches. Had to do that by hand, and the rows were like a quarter-mile rows or something like that,
yeah,
long rows. And then we had long-handled hoes that we used to weed the beets. And I still have one of those hoes that I
Me too.
bought at the auction. Mine's got 3 file marks on it. I can't remember whose name that was.
It's got my initials on mine.
Oh, did you? But anyway, so once we get into those bigger acreages, Dad had to have more than just family help. So mainly it was Mexicans came in, and so we had some of the same Mexicans that came year after year. So the main 2 I remember is Jose and Daniel, which are on the Facebook pages. But they were just good, honest, friendly, wholesome Mexicans. And we had others that Lynn can tell you maybe about some of the others, like the Barbadians. But one year, at least 1 year, maybe 2 years, I can't remember, we had German prisoners come in. And I don't know why they had them this was in Montana, and I don't know why they had them this far, unless sugar was one of the important crops that had to be grown for the sake of the country. It was one of the government subsidized crops that was very important to the country, and so that's probably why they brought those prisoners in. But I remember as a boy of, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old maybe, riding on the tractor with Dad, going out to work the fields, and as we would drive by where the German prisoners were weeding or throwing beets in the truck, we had to actually throw the beets in the truck by hand. Dad had a digger on the tractor that would dig them and lay them on the ground the first few years. And then the Mexicans would have to come, Mexicans or the German prisoners or whoever, would come and pick up the beet, and they'd have a beet knife with a hook on the end that it's easy just to pick the beet up, and then you hold it by the top. No, you hold it by the beet, and then you just hack the top off, just about this much of the crown. And then the Mexicans would throw them in the truck as they did this, Mexicans and German prisoners. But anyways, I was riding on the tractor with Dad. I remember this German prisoner, we got real close to him, he looked at me. And I thought they were bad guys, you know, and it scared me. He looked right at me. And I'll never forget that. It just kind of scared me, and I was glad that Dad was so close. And they had guards stationed around the field. Lynn says there wasn't too many guards, but I remember they had guards at the different, like maybe 3 or 4 guards around the field with their rifles to make sure the prisoners didn't get away. And at night they would put the prisoners back in the trucks and take them back through our yard right past the house, between the chicken coop, which turned into be a labor house, and our own house, and they'd go right past there at night, and that was just something I'll never forget. And us kids, we caught fish down the river sometimes and gave to the guards because they, for some reason, really liked fish, and so that was something we did, is go down and catch fish, and the guards, I don't know where they took them or how they handled them, but they seemed to like the fish we gave them. Anyway, the sugar beet process was quite an intensive process, and then later on we got the kind of digger that also had an elevator on a chain, a big 8 feet high maybe, that had fingers on it that would take the beets up onto and drop them onto a table, a revolving apron. The beets and the clods and the mud, not different kind of clod, clods of dirt, would drop on there, and sometimes on your fingers, and then there'd be people on each side on little stands. Mom would get out there with her hair tied up in a handkerchief, and people on each side picking the beets off and putting them in the big hopper that was underneath the apron, and then the dirt and the tops and everything would go over, and the pheasants and everything, the sheep and stuff would eat the tops. And so that was a process that took, I don't know, a month or so to dig every year. And it was just an amazing, intensive process. Never forget that.
That was the days when Mom didn't had nothing else to do.
Right.
So get on that harvester and work all day in the beets. And Yeah, the Barbadians we had there was from, you know, Barbados Island.
Island, yeah.
Off the east coast of Florida, I guess. And we had them, and they were good workers, but they were used to 120 degree or whatever, in real hot weather, and got them out there and we'd get a little cold spell where the weather get down in the 30s. This one big guy, Charles, I think is his name.
Sounds familiar.
But he's the first one to run to the house just a screaming. His feet were frozen. He decided frozen. By gosh, I think twice Dad took him to the hospital to find out. And they weren't frozen. He just, his system is used to such hot weather.
Just not
It wasn't even
acclimated.
freezing weather. It was above freezing. But he still had frozen feet in their bodies. Poor guys,
They suffered.
they were good workers when they, nice people to have there to do the work, but that did send a lot of them running the house. They just come a-hollering. Those German prisoners, they wasn't worth a hoot, 'cause as far as getting
Yeah.
the production, 'cause
They didn't care.
they were our enemy. Anyway, we looked at it. I remember Bryce come home on leave in the Navy and come out the field where they're working to see Dad and see what was going on. And he walked up pretty close to one of these officers, maybe he'd been a German officer, I don't know the accent, that's what you'd kind of guess. But Bryce got close enough, he spit on Bryce out in his uniform.
Wow.
That told quite a bit about him. But you can't blame them, they were prisoners and
Not happy.
they didn't want to see us get a lot of sugar. It wasn't doing their country any good. But the Mexicans was the best laborers we had.
They were good.
Yeah. Dad thought it was that time we should keep up with them, and boy, I'll tell you what, that's asking quite a bit. They'd bend over down, they'd never straighten up to get the other end, and they'd just turn around and head right back again. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were.
It was intensive.
Yeah.
Daylight till dark, just about.
They still are. They're good workers.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I figure we got our start, is in those sugar beet fields.